Joe, go ahead. Activate that flap. That'll give you screen control. Hello, everyone. This is Brian Ankney with Auto Success Magazine. Today I have Joe Henry from ACT with us. Today we're going to talk about how to, what makes a technician, stay with your company or leave your company. What makes them love you or leave you? I'm sure everybody on this call is aware that there's a major shortage of technicians in the United States right now. During the downturn, they weren't getting the hours and the wages that they were looking for, and so they've gone out and found other jobs. And in the meantime, there weren't as many people going to the school. So right now, it's really difficult to adequately staff your service department. Joe, are you with us?
I am. Go ahead.
Fantastic, Joe. Did that little app open for you all right?
Should I go ahead and take care of that or open it up?
Yes, please. Yep,
okay.
Click on that. Everybody. Today we have Joe Henry from ACT. Joe's going to share with you, some of the techniques. Well, first he's going to share with you some of the mistakes that a lot of dealers are making right now. And to be honest with you, I would not have thought of a lot of these things until I saw his slide deck. So it's really exciting information he's going to share with you today. Some of the mistakes that I'm sure some people on the phone are going to say, "Holy mackerel, I've been doing that." And then he's also going to share with you some techniques that will help you to retain the guys that you have. Once you identify the problems that you have, he's going to show you how to fix them and then how to implement some other techniques that will help you to even take it to the next level. Joe, did that app open okay for you?
It did not, so I'm going to have to get you to move it from screen to screen.
You got it. All right. Bear with us 1 second, everybody. I just got to take back control. And card selection. Whoops.
It took me where I had to download another app and do some other stuff. So.
No problem. I got control. Joe, you want to take it away?
All right. Well, good. Well, first of all, thank you all and my over 3,000 dealers across the country that are my clients for keeping us going. We've been doing this since 1998, and we're here in the summertime, and we hate to interrupt Donald J. Trump's summer jam for something slightly more substantive to our industry, but we're just going to do that. A little bit about me. I'm an old fixed ops director in a dealership myself. Don't hold that against me. And on top of that, I was a technician during college. I've been a service advisor, shop foreman, service manager, you name it. Been doing this forever and ever. So we're going to talk about some various things, but here's probably the three most important things that you should get out of this, and we're going to recap this at the end. First of all, there's no unemployed technicians anymore. There's no such thing as the guy that's out there just looking for a job because he's unemployed. The shortage has dictated that, and I'm sure everybody's felt that. Second thing is that because there are no unemployed technicians, what you have to do is actually try to connect to people who are working who are not satisfied. That's why they put their resumes out there. That's why they'll contact you, etc. And then the third part that's most important as well is that our general management style has got to change in the industry. When I was a service manager, I used to tell everybody that we do it by ways and means system, which is as long as you do it my way, then I don't get mean. And unfortunately, there were even many employers and service directors and managers that I worked for that did it purely by intimidation management, and we'll get into some of the reasons why that just doesn't work anymore. So we're on to why techs love you or leave you, and Brian, thanks again for having us here. We really appreciate it, and go right ahead, bring us into the next slide, please. Brian?
Joe, it's slick. In the movie What Women Want?
Yep. Yeah, I don't see that one. I still have this one that says, what text? Well, that's okay. Here, I'll just pull it up on my other one there. So, all right. So, one of the things that that is really going to help everybody out there is that when we bring this information to you, this information has been coming through us for quite a few years, and we have lots of clients. ACT Auto Staffing has lots of clients that are very, very gigantic, that ask us to do focus groups, that ask us to do surveys, that ask us to do commentaries, etc., and which that we've kept that data as well as kept updating it, and that's why this information is going to be so pertinent for you there. So, all right, Brian, if you'll go to the next page. And so I don't know if anybody's ever seen the movie What Women Want with Mel Gibson and Helen Hunt, but basically it was a funny movie that Mel Gibson could tell what women wanted, and once he found out that he could tell, he found out a lot more than he really wanted to know. And this is kind of going to be the same thing that you're going to want. So here we are in our movie 2.0 and warning you about some of the things that you're going to find out. Okay, next slide. So let's cover the most common, first of all, we're going to cover the most common reasons why technicians leave us. And remember, these are people who, and technicians that contact us daily, that also we've done surveys and group studies, etc. And so as we bring this along, we can tell you that there have just been so many things that have come through the dealership's upper management or thought processes, or even down lower in mid-management, that have just absolutely driven technicians off. And we can tell because all of a sudden we just get slews of resumes coming in when something like this happens. And we just thought we'd put in that here's poor little Billy Bob, an award-winning 17-year dealership tech. He's got all the certifications, and he's telling Dr. Phil what happened because he just has been crazy about the whole thing. Next slide. So here's the number one reason why we hear that technicians go through the painful divorce from their dealerships, load up their condominium of a toolbox, and kiss their benefits goodbye and leave. It's not because show me the money. It's all about the boss and how that he approaches us or she. And we just talked about that earlier in some of the most common things. But we're going to get into a little bit more of the parts of what will help you with respect to that management part. Once again, I was an intimidator with my technicians, and today that just doesn't work. You've got to work with them. By the way, that guy over there on the left, he looks like every technician that I ever yelled at. Next slide. So here's the other next thing that technicians tell us about, which is that they get cross signals from different parts of the dealership. And one day, a service manager may tell you one thing, and then a dealer may tell you another. And I've certainly been in that environment before. And it's time to realize that that's very important to coordinate all of that. And when I talk with dealers or fixed ops managers, I'll hear one or the other of them say, boy, you're so right, but he doesn't get it, meaning the dealer or the fixed ops manager or the service manager, etc. So all of these confused signals to the techs just give them complete disconfident in the whole system. And it's like dialing 911 because you've got a hazmat team that needs to come in there, because that formula is like a hazmat spewing toxicity all through employees' work ethics. These fumes become major causes of tech retention problems as well as employee retention problems. And trying to retain techs and employees without taking account of all these mixed messages is much like trying to convince the staff that a vegan, gluten-free cupcake tastes just like the real thing. It just doesn't work. And here's the other big part. Many techs know that if the parts department and the service department are constantly fighting, they know it, and it just causes complete disarray. All right, let's go on to the next slide. Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? And believe me, gentlemen and ladies, it still happens. A new general manager gets in there and says, we're going to teach everybody that they're expendable. I want you to fire somebody in your department just so they know, and everybody hears about it and everybody knows. But of course, that particular guy or that particular dealer doesn't know that applicants for, as an example, unemployment have plunged to a 42-year low, and then never mind the tech shortage. So it just makes it hard to keep the environment up, keep everybody's spirit up. Okay, next slide. What is fair is fair? Well, maybe not. So we hear all the time from techs that says, you know, my service advisor has been with us and he could sell or she could sell and everything was good, and then the next thing you know is they advanced him to the front, or she left to go be a service manager someplace else. And then the hours plummet, and then everybody says, oh, well, you guys just keep hanging in there to the techs and we'll fix it. And then another buzz killer is forcing them to work weekends, and we'll get into a little bit more about some ideas about that. There's certainly times where technicians contact us and say, you know, I'm a divorced dad, and I get 2 Saturdays a month with my kids, and I can't get my service manager to give me those times off. He just won't do it. He says, tough, that's the way it is. And it's just heartbreaking sometimes to hear that they've left dealerships because of that. Plus, I don't know about any of you, as I mentioned, I used to be a technician. I know it's hard labor, and your body needs a break, your mind needs a break, etc. So, all right, on to the next slide. How about a nice duplex? And folks, I actually have been to many NADA groups where there are these supposed experts, and they pull dealers and service managers or fixed ops directors in and say, we've got a plan and a program to show you. And they show them something that it's sure, what it's going to do is it's going to make a lot of gross, but it's just going to kill the technicians. And one of them is an example that we've heard from technicians is a duplex plan where they separate the shop in half. Half of them, the A's and B guys are on one side and the C and D guys, girls are on the other. And what happens is that, like the little picture shows, here it is 5 o'clock, and our little CD technician says, had a great day, did 4 menu services plus a brake job and 2 induction services. I love CP, and the poor guy's over there saying, if I have to do another noise, vibration, harshness, or warranty check, I'm going to, you know, scream. And she got all my gravy work. But believe it or not, that still happens all over the place. So anytime you implement a new program, please consider what it's going to do down there. And a lot of times programs are good, but they're not implemented right. And then next thing you know is it's the same chaos. Okay, Brian, on to the next slide, please. Submit to me, slaves. Even, you know, buzzsaw GM guy that says go in and fire somebody, there's still people that are in upper management and or dealers who just push people around and give them such extreme conditions that it's no wonder, you know, that they don't leave the dealership. As an example, I remember about 5 techs calling one day saying, I can't stand this thing. Our dealer does this to us all the time. At 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, he sends the service manager in and says, there's a meeting at 6 o'clock and we get off at 5, and you better be there or you'll be fired. And, you know, they can't go pick up their kids. They're scrambling around trying to get things taken care of. And that's just another thing that we keep hearing about on this. All right, and then on to the next slide there, Brian. Okay, so here's another one I hear from techs, which is that he or she is qualified, begs to go to school, and we all understand this, which is that we spend a lot of money and then we end up taking a loss because we take that technician, we send them off to school, we pay them and get all that, and then the next thing you know is we're afraid that that technician's going to pick up and leave. And we're going to talk about some things that will retain them on that. But needless to say, when a technician wants to go to school and has done all the preliminary work from the factory and won't be sent off, you know, that just doesn't make the technician feel good. It makes him feel like, boss, you make me feel like I'm the most beautiful horse in the line for the glue factory. And let's go on to the next one. So we've been talking about some of these, and here's the worst kept secret in their industry. Because I get it all the time where a dealer or a fixed ops manager will say, you know, we did this and this, and you know, it's hard on, we know it's hard on technicians, etc. But you know, the hell with it, because everybody else does it. And that's like thinking that you're the cleanest shirt in the dirty clothes basket, because it's just not going to work in the future. These guys are getting rare, and they know it, and they're going to have some leverage on this type of stuff. Okay, next slide. So we've talked about some of the things that have driven technicians that we have recorded that many times, of which that have gone away. But now let's talk about what technicians really like and why they do stay and what keeps them there, as well as that when you're recruiting for new technicians, some of the things that will track them. So if you'll go on to the next slide, Brian. And here's the number one thing that people are looking for. It's not my destination, bro. It's my journey. You may find this hard to believe. However, existing and potential techs to join your team, it's not a raise or money that's the most important. It is important, but it's not the most important. The number one item is to set a clear or custom career path. That means sit them down, talk to them. You know, do you want to continue to get more certifications? Let's talk about that. Are you getting to the point physically where you can't do this particular thing? Can we work with you, Mr. Up-level tech, to maybe get you do more mentoring, supervising, just anything to sit them down and talk about where they want to go and what they want to do is the most important thing to them. So next slide. Then probably the next most important thing is being respectful and interface with them. Once again, my old ways and means, it just doesn't work anymore. And it's not going to work in your dealership either. The more intimidation, the more you beat these people up, the more they're going to be like that guy back on that one slide who's not going to be happy. And that doesn't mean you have to slay their dragons. But what I did do that was very important is I knew every one of my technicians, as well as their lives outside, what their hobbies were, what their families were doing, how they were doing it, trying to at least keep up with that, talk with them, etc. Because they feel like that you've got equity in them, and they feel like they can talk with you, and that this keeps a lot of times, you know, those hidden heart attacks from happening, where the technician just walks in and says, I'm giving you a week's notice, and if you don't want me right now, I'll just pick up my box and go, and it's a complete surprise. So you want to try to keep working with these folks and keep working with them. And there have been studies that show that showing appreciation to your technicians actually has more incentives than money. So that's important to keep in there too. Okay, next slide. And then here we are, the other part, which is that if your dealership can offer some flex schedules or 4-day or 4-night work weeks or weekends off or some of the other things we're going to touch base on, this is very important to them. So we like to, and as we all know, the factories would love for all of us and the customers to be open 24/7. They don't understand why we would close on Sunday, you know, when Tire Kingdom or Jiffy Lube and so on. And so I know that they would like to have us open 7 days a week. However, in the past 20 years, as you may remember, we always used to be open Monday through Friday, close at 5. And the factories have pushed us out of that. We've done that. So in the meantime, while expanding hours, we'll go down to the bullet point, expanding hours to later hours, many dealerships that we've worked with have designed 4-day work weeks. And so that's a big plus, because some of these guys love to talk about when it's Thursday, they'll walk around the dealership saying, hey, what day is it? And they'll say Thursday. No, it isn't. It's Friday because I'm off tomorrow. So it's a big part of it. Some techs next bullet point, some techs like dealerships that have dedicated night service. I started night service in 2 different dealerships that I was a fixed ops manager in. Also, many techs will work Saturdays if in return they can get a 3-day weekend or some other, day during the week. And then some dealers give extra compensation for Saturdays, like guarantees or a time and a half of whatever their flag rate is. Those are some inspirations. Or, as the last one, designate a tech team to work every weekend with some type of multiple days off. So you know your group, and if you want to turn around and inspire other people to come in, you have to keep in mind some of these other parts, because other companies are doing this. And if you don't keep up with it, they're going to be ending up taking your technicians. Okay, next slide. Here's a big part, and I work with many, many dealers and fixed ops managers on putting together this, because my dealer, who was a very progressive, smart dealer, many years ago taught me about this, a retention bonus. And you can read the text that's here, but essentially what you do is, what we did is we took whatever hours they turned in a quarter of a year, and we multiplied that times a certain time, a certain amount per hour for that quarter. And we kept track of it. And what we would do is, after a year and 1 quarter, the technician would get the first quarter's bonus. And that meant that the technician always had 1 year's worth of quarterly bonuses sitting back there. So in the event that the technician ever came walking into my office and said, "Boss, Mama says she doesn't want me dirty anymore, and she wants me to quit and go to work for the phone company," or something or another. The first time I sat back and said, "Well, you're leaving about $5,000 on the table," that usually flipped them faster than a pro wrestler in the WWE, because all of a sudden they realize that there's quite a bit of money. Now, I have put an example there using assumptions, and we'll just kind of go through that real quick. Let's say the tech turns 48 hours flat rate every week, which we know not every week's going to happen, but it's an example. And then let's use $2.25% as the retention bonus times 52 weeks, and 13 weeks is a quarter. So you take $2.25, multiply it times 48 hours a week. It's about $108 each week times 13 weeks. So the amount for each quarter is about $14.04. If they leave in a year, they're basically leaving about $5,600 bonus. And believe me, our picture graphic on the bottom there is a perfect example, because a lot of them say, "Yes, I want to stay here for that extra cash." Okay, next slide, please, Brian. Now, I know these are bad words, but these, again, will keep technicians in your pool, and you don't want them picking up and running off into somebody else's pool. A couple of things are minimum guarantee, and I know that's a bad word. Sometimes it's something that's just absolutely necessary. We get phone calls all the time from technicians who had worked at a Midas or in an independent shop, and the dealer recruited them to come in there, and they just couldn't turn the hours because they're not used to it. And next thing you know is they're calling me saying, "I got paid for 30-something hours, and I was there 45, and I'm just not going to put up with it." So sometimes you've just got to sit down with a minimum guarantee. Another part is, I know that everybody hates to hear this, but one of these days, I think that there's going to be the death of the flat rate program. So one of the most progressive pay plans are usually a minimum guarantee plus production bonus. So, and we all can figure out what that is, but that's certainly something to consider to keep technicians around. Okay, next slide, please, Brian, which is, of course, Show Me the Money has big power, and regular reviews and possible raises are team builders. One of the dealers I work for, and that's the same one that I told you about that taught me about retention, is we have MDK money, Joe, and that's Mama Don't Know. And it's always cash spiffs, And I know that big corporate public traded stores a lot of times can't just pay cash, but we used to go out and walk around just like this guy here and just hand it to him as he's working. Big plus, big bonus. So, all right, and on to the next deal. Benefits are supposed to benefit me, aren't they? And here's what I hear this all the time of other consultants talking about this, which is that for so many years, technicians may turn an average of 50, 60 hours a week, and then when they go on vacation, wah, wah, they get paid 40 hours. And so it doesn't make any sense. And so a lot of dealers now are realizing this and saying, you know, we're going to pay you whatever your average is on there. The other part about it is that back in 2008, I understand many dealers had to cut back on health care coverage, retirement plans, benefits, matching contributions. And so now that it's back, it's important to realize that that's a big part that other dealers are using to recruit. And just like our pictures here with our happy technician and his family, Mama says, Junior, I'm so glad that your dad found this new dealership. This one pays us enough that we can take a vacation. All right, on to the next one. Sometimes when you work for the factory, you sometimes work for free. Now, we all know that there's some warranty times that just simply suck, and we try to beat the factory up to raise them. But in the meantime, many dealers now are starting to see that that just is really a sad situation for technicians and trying to work with them. So, true story, not very common, but it is. I have dealers that have loads of work piled up, and when it comes to warranty work, they're paying 1.5 to 2 times whatever it is that the flag rate does. And especially on, you know, poor paying jobs, like for this poor guy down here who's probably an upper level technician. He spent all day on punch clock, finally found corrosion on a pin in the B-pillar harness. And by the way, this came from a direct guy telling us the story. And he averaged about 16 hours, and he says, you know, he says, every time I turn around, I'm into one of these clock time deals, and he says, I just get my clock cleaned. So, and then, yes, it does affect your gross, but it's better to keep working a little bit with these guys and keeping them happy rather than losing them, because if he's not there, then you don't get any growth whatsoever. And then on to the last slide. So, in summation, this is what I was talking about. Why is technician retention so critical? Well, you know, a lot of new car owners and dealers are seeking knowledgeable techs with all this electronics and connecting components. Also, everybody out of the pool, the gene pool is getting empty, as we all know. These poor people who are coming out of technical school, whether they be the factory or the regular school, most of them have really not the slightest idea. And I've written a couple of articles on how we have to change that, but we'll get into some of that here in just a second. And then also, you know, we have to keep continuing to make efforts to find these technicians. And Brian and I will put together another program that will be even more specific about that. But in the meantime, your dealership should always be recruiting, and that's very, very important. So we're going to recap again back to the 3 most important things. If you didn't get anything out of this, these 3 things are something that you really, really should keep in mind. First of all, once again, there's no unemployed techs. They're all employed. If they're out there with a resume or they're inquiring, it's because they're not happy where they are. Second of all, because there's so little techs, you have to be proactively recruiting all the time. And there's an article on my website when you go to actautostaffing.com and you click on employers, and on the right-hand side just below where it says username and password, there's a blue panel with red stripes through it that says interesting articles written by Joe Henry that have been published in trade magazines. All of those articles have been published in Auto Success, but you should read those because those are important, and it'll talk about how you have to proactively pursue these. We recommend, believe it or not, that when you have a resume, and that you should first of all call as well as email and do it as many as 5 or 6 times to try to get this person to respond. And the article goes in why and how come. And dealers that are doing that are finding people. Dealers who say, no, that's too much trouble, no, I want those guys to contact me, they're not hiring people. And then on to number 3, once again, your management style is just going to have to change. You've got to be more of these guys' friends. And in Auto Success magazine this month, we're going to have an article about millennials and how that the Navy as well as Chipotle's, the restaurant, handles them. They both have to deal with millennials, and when you read the article, you'll find some very insightful things that are very important, just like what we have to do into the auto industry. So that's enough from me. Brian, thanks much. I'm ready for you to take it over.
All right, everybody. This is Brian Ankeny with Auto Success. Thank you, Joe. That was some great information. At this point in the webinar, if anybody has any questions that you'd like to ask Joe, please type them into the chat function, and it's on the left side of the screen. And you type those in, then I'll ask them to Joe. Also, if anybody came on late, or would like, we had a little bit of a technical glitch at the beginning with the slideshow. If you would like that slideshow, send me an email, and I'll get it for you. It's Brian with an I at autosuccessonline.com. Also, if you missed, if you have some questions, say you try to implement some of Joe's techniques, and you have some questions, please feel free to reach out to him, or you can go to Auto Success Webinars, which is the group you see on your screen right now on Facebook, and you can interact with Joe and myself and our other webinar speakers, and we're creating a community of people to help each other across the country. Joe, I wanted to ask also, I wanted to ask you, we did a webinar recently with the Reichert Group, and they have changed the way that they pay their techs in a lot of the ways that you discussed. When you do the variable schedules, do you allow them to participate in, I'm sure you say, do you want to work nights or early, but do you allow them to shift based upon, children or sports or seasons? How do you recommend you handle that?
Well, first of all, of course, you need to have enough business to be able to justify any types of shifts there. But second of all, yes, as we continue along, I'm sure everybody's familiar with this recent article that was, I think, in the Washington Post about how they've exposed that working for Amazon is not all great and fine, that allegedly Amazon's, working their people to death, etc. But now people have become, the American workers are becoming more aware of conditions, and they want to be able to have that flexibility to be able to do that. So if you I had many technicians that started out with our dealership that started in day, and then circumstance changes, and they would come to us and say, I think I'd rather work nights. So we made sure that we could and shifted them, and vice versa. We had some people that could work nights because what the technician was doing is he was staying home with the kids and picking them up from school and dropping them off and then coming to work. And Mama would come home and take over from there, but then things could change where maybe the technician went through a divorce, and so that wasn't his obligation anymore. Next thing you know is he wanted to go back on, or he wanted to go to days. So yeah, there's always those flexibilities depending on the circumstance.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? I actually have one more I wanted to ask you as well. At Reichert Ford, for their reconditioning of their used vehicles, they've gone to a flat rate, which I thought was really interesting from what you were talking about, as opposed to, they've gone to a flat rate and their techs are making more money and their cars are getting reconditioned quicker. So a car from 0 to 20,000 miles might get paid so many hours. I think it was like 2 hours, and then from 20 to 40 was like 5 hours, and then it went up from there based upon the mileage of the vehicles. Did you ever do that in any of your stores, Joe? It was an idea I'd never heard before.
Reconditioning, of course, is always a controversy. It depends on the dealership. some of the dealers that I've worked for and worked with, make it a very integral part, and then some of them make it where it almost is a conflict. But that's basically following what my suggestion is, which is that, now what you've done is you've given these used car techs a basic guarantee. So if you hire them out of an independent shop, always remember that a guy that comes out of an independent shop or even a franchise shop, he's a big fish in a small pond. When he goes to a dealership, most likely he's going to be a small fish in a big pond. And when you tell them, look, you're guaranteed $300 or $150 for every used car that you recondition, make your list, etc., whether you get the work or not. That's a guarantee that takes a lot of the ambiguity out of it, where if a guy comes from one of the independents or a franchise and is trying to do and get involved into the daily routine, it's a little more scary to him.
Okay. Well, I guess that's all the questions that we have for today. Everybody, I'd really like to thank you, Joe, for coming and taking the time out of your day to share this information. I'm sure you helped a lot of these people, open their eyes to some of the conditions that maybe they need to change in their dealerships. And again, everyone, join Auto Success webinars. That'll keep you informed about all of our upcoming webinars. Also, for anybody that joined late, we do have Auto Success Service, which is going to launch next month. And it's Joe mentioned he had an article in there, but it's going to be a version of Auto Success that's dedicated, specifically to the fixed operations departments. And it's going to be the same style as the other magazine. It's going to be, all positive. It's all, and we're not going to talk about, I'm not going to tell you what your problems are. You already know what they are. I'm going to try to find the best people in the industry to share with you solutions. And so if anybody would like, to be on that list of the people who receive that magazine, please send me an email at Brian with an I at autosuccessonline.com. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, everyone, for taking the time.
And thank you and my 3,000 dealers across country and my clients for bringing us here.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye now.